Yo, what's up, boys? It's Betta-ah here with my poor man's Herald of Agony Necromancer. That's an early 120 Chaos budget live version before going Chaos Inoculation with an Aegis Aurora shield. It takes on T16 mapping and early Guardians rather comfortably with a decent amount of damage and defense, so you can gather more currency to switch to CR later on with the Aegis Aurora shield. How the build works is you effectively poison enemies yourself. That builds up virulence charges for our Agony Crawler that deals massive amounts of damage while having our little skittering spider friends basically clearing maps and trash and for general support on bossing. Defensive wise, we abuse hard block chance and other mitigations down the line to be really tanky on the build. And speaking of super tanky, check out my Herald of Agony Guardian build guide that I have. The links are down below, or you can click in the top right hand corner now to check out the video. Comparing to Necromancer to Guardian, the damage we gain from the Ascendancy is far superior at the loss of a little bit of defense, obviously. In this video, I will cover the basics of the life setup on the build and the leveling process of when to transition the build smoothly while getting really familiar with how the build's playstyle pretty much works early on to this very setup over here. There will be another 2 videos that will follow, with the CR transition being the next one on about a 3 to 4 divine budget, maybe a little bit less, and then obviously a endgame variant whereby you'll look to spend about 15, maybe 20 divines. Right, so as I mentioned, we need to poison enemies in order to build up virulence charges to increase the amount of damage that our Agony Crawler deals. How we are doing this is by using a Ball Lightning and a Storm Brand linked to fast casting and chance to poison. This is just enough to keep our virulences capped at 40 without any medium clusters whatsoever. And now for each virulence charge that you have, the Agony Crawler gains increased attack speed, flat physical damage, which is pretty high, and then of course percent based physical damage too, giving us a lot of damage, especially because we are scaling the level of Herald of Agony, and therefore the Agony Crawler can deal a significant amount of damage with its tail spark damage specifically. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we are using our spider friends for our clear speed and for some support for the Agony Crawler. And now in order to summon up your little skittering friends, what you're going to want to do is just desecrate 2 or 3 times and pop your Storm Brand behind and in front of you, preferably, and then just hit the Wrathing Jar and boom, they will automatically summon. You just do need to note that when you kill an enemy, it does require corpses around it in order to trigger the spider spawn. For our Ascendancy, we are of course the Necromancer, and for your normal lab you should pick up Commander of Darkness, giving increased attack speed and damage for your minions and yourself early on, along with the extra elemental resistances so you can get through the acts much quicker. And then once you get to your Cruel Lab, you will want to pick up Mindless Aggression for, once again, minion damage and attack speed. Very good. And then for your Merciless Lab, you'll want to pick up Unnatural Strength, which is really powerful. This gives our Agony Crawler a massive boost in damage, as it has got a lot of physical damage. And now what Unholy Might does is it takes 30% of the total amount of physical damage and it gives it as extra chaos damage, allowing our Agony Crawler and our spiders to deal extra damage. For your last lab, you must pick up Mistress of Sacrifice. The reason why you want to get this is so your offering skills also affect you, as we are using Bone Offering to gain a high amount of spell block and normal block chance. This is very powerful. And then it also gives increased skill effect duration, which counts towards the spiders lasting much longer, along with your Bone Offering as well, which is really good. In terms of the skill tree, we are pretty much just making use of all of the closest life nodes possible, along with some damage taken recouped as life, along with Mind Over Matter. The reason why I'm using Mind Over Matter is because we've got Eldritch Battery, allowing for all of our energy shield to instead protect our mana. This enables us to not worry about having to consume a lot of mana as spamming Ball Lightning and your Storm Brand the whole time to keep your virulences up. You tend to take a lot of mana, and this solves the problem really well early on. And also it does give us quite a fair amount of extra mitigation. Other than that, we are just pretty much grabbing as much block that we can around here, along with some more energy shield and an armor very early on, just to make sure that we have got enough armor, as we've got 14,000 already, so we are somewhat okay against physical mitigation. For your Storm Brand, you must pick up a Ruin Binder, so you can have 2 brands attached to an enemy. This is mostly just for bosses to ensure that your virulences are built up really quickly. And then also a split personality is very important over here for the extra dexterity, as the build is dexterity starved, and it does tend to be a little bit tedious to get it on gear. Other than that, we've just got minion attack damage and attack speed picked up all over the place. Some extra minion accuracy, which is really good for early bossing, mostly for guardians though. And then of course the extra chance to deal double damage. And then we've also got increased effective offerings, giving us more block and attack block chance. And then also some more block chance over here with some elemental resistances is really good early on. You must have all of your reservation efficiency nodes, including the Herald ones over here, in order to fit all 3 auras, which is the Herald of Agony, Determination, and Tempest Shield. At the moment, we are able to have 46 attack block and 56 spell block. However, when you pop your Bone Offering, it basically almost caps out, which is really good early on, especially for a budget version of the build. Okay, moving on to the Pantheon. For your major Pantheon, you should use Soul of the Brine King. This is to ensure that you do not become stun locked, and it also does work pretty well with practical application. You should capture Captain Claiborne for the 100% chance to avoid being frozen. This way you don't have to rely on avoid or immunity to freeze on your flasks. And then for your mana, you should use Soul of Aberrath. This is especially really powerful when you're fighting Searing Exarch dominance enemies, because of their Burning Ground. It does a shitload of damage, and this just makes it really comfortable for mapping. Alright, moving on to the gear. Of course, for your weapon is Oracali's Fang for your little skittering friends and that. And then for the helmet is one that's got a decent amount of energy shield along with the laugh. You should try and get high energy shield with chaos resistance, because you need to ensure that your chaos resistance is capped. And to make sure that it is capped, we are using 2 Circle of Nostalgias, specifically for the chaos resistance while affected by Herald of Agony. This allows us to reach the cap very easily without having to worry about putting it on any other gear. And then of course on these rings you should have Herald of Agony has increased mana reservation efficiency with the highest number possible. You can probably get away with having about 36% on them or so, and try and get ones that have got a decent amount of all attributes and not low rolls. And then in terms of the implicits, you can pretty much just go with anything that you want or anything that you find. They are really not important this early on. And then for the amulet, I'm using the Anvil, which is really good, as it gives a huge amount of flat armor. It gives you life and mana when you block. Specifically, the life is very important here. And the reason why that is important is because we pair that with our shield that gives more life gain on block. But yeah, the amulet also gives a high amount of chance to block attack damage, allowing us to reach our cap a lot easier early on. And then for the shield, of course, is the life gained when you block, which is very well paired with this. So in total, I think we're running like 136 or so there. And then over here we have another 20, so you can call it maybe 150 life gained on block, including the mastery node. Other than that, with the shield, you just pretty much want some high armor. You can probably just get an a energy shield one as well if you're comfortable with losing some armor. And yeah, I've just got some resistance and high life on the shield just to ensure that our pool sits above 3000. And then for the boots is once again just energy shield base here, with high movement speed to ensure that we're a speedy boy with a little bit of resistance and life. And then with the gloves, I've got dexterity on them and some energy shield, and once again some more resistance. With the implicits, you can pretty much just use any ones that you want. I'm just using the chance to poison over here with minions to deal extra damage. These are not necessary at all. And then of course on the boots I've got the increased recovery rates of travel skills just to make flame dash a bit easier. And then on the helmet I've got physical from hits taken as cold, along with the lightning damage taken recouped as life, just for that extra recoup. Is the Belt of the Deceiver, in order to take 30% reduced extra damage from critical strikes. Of course, it does intimidate nearby enemies as well, making them take 10% increased damage, and it does give us a fair amount of resistances, which is really, really good. And then for our body armor is the Skin of the Lords. The only reason why you want to use this body armor specifically is because it gives the 100% increased global defenses, which is a massive boost to armor and as such. Other than that, the tutor level of socketed skill gems is probably the most powerful thing here, allowing our Agony Crawler to reach level 26, which is paired with the Empower. For the keystones on this body armor, you should look for ones that are not going to be aids for the build. Perfect Agony very early on is really, really cheap. There are a few others that I will include in the path of building, which you should look to get. And pretty much any others that are not listed there, you should not get at all, because it will cause problems with the build. Right, moving over onto the skill gems real quick. I'm using Feeding Frenzy with our spiders. This gives extra damage and makes them aggressive, so they feel a little bit less clunky while mapping. And then I'm using Withering Touch. This enables us to build Withered on the enemies, making them take up to 90% increased chaos damage, which is really, really good with the Agony Crawler, as we have got our unnatural strength as well. So our Agony Crawler is dealing chaos damage, so that does help out a lot. And then of course I'm just using multi-strike for bossing or guardians, but while mapping you should swap it out for a melee splash just to make your clear speed a bit quicker. But yeah, in the helmet, other than that, I'm just using a Despair Curse for the extra damage that it does give the spiders and our Agony Crawler, reducing enemies' resistances, specifically Chaos Resistance by 27, and then is the Bone Offering, of course. And then I'm just using a Cast when damage taken with an Immortal Core, just to prevent those random one-shots that do tend to occur with the build. And then is of course our Desecrate for the corpse generation, and our Determination giving a massive boost in armor. And then our Tempest Shield for the immunity to shock, and more importantly the high amounts of extra spell block chance that it does give us. And then I'm using a Molten Shell on left click. This is just for extra mitigation. And then a Convocation. Convocation over here is very, very good, and the reason why it's really good is because sometimes your minions will get stuck on ledges or like in silly places, and Convocation just helps you to reset them on top of you so they are no longer stuck. And then Flame Dash for utility pretty much, along with Second Wind giving it a extra charge, so there's 4 charges. And then of course in the gloves is the Ball Lightning, Storebrand, and Fast Casting with chance to poison. But yeah, with your Herald of Agony, you should link it to Vile Toxins and Vicious Projectiles. This gives more damage with poisons, and more chaos and more physical, which our Agony Crawler has got both of in this instance. And then a minion damage for the more minion damage that it provides the Agony Crawler with, along with a Void Manipulation for more chaos damage. And then lastly is the Empower, raising the Agony Crawler by an extra 4 levels. So in total we're gaining 6 levels over here from the body armor and the Empower in total. I do just want to note though, with the Skin of the Lord's body armor, your gems must be corrupted, otherwise you will not be able to socket them in. Okay, moving over to the path of building. With the 120 chaos budget, you will expect to have around about 2.2 million DPS, with an effective hit pool of between 60 to maybe 80,000 or so. In the notes, I have got the gearing priority of what you should put first and try and get first. And then along with this, I've also got the trade links of each item, just to make things a little bit easier on you, seeing as though I am lazy, and I think that the majority of us are, so this just makes things a lot easier on you. Obviously, you just copy the link, just paste it into Google, and bam, you can pretty much just change up the searches for the rares with whatever resistance or dexterity or so forth that you're actually looking for. With leveling from Act 1 up until around about the middle of Act 4, you will be using Spark. And the reason why you want to use Spark is because it is really quick. It can down bosses and clears through the areas really fast. With your Spark, you want to have linked to it is Onslaught and Pierce early on, and then your Arcane Surge, and then they added lightning damage with a chance to poison just for the extra damage and that stuff early on. And the reason why a chance to poison, this is really good from Act 2, as you should start using your Herald of Agony. Other than that, you'll just be using Flame Dash just for maneuverability, and then a Orb of Storms. With Orb of Storms, this is only for bossing, so when you get to a boss, what you pretty much want to do is just pop Orb of Storms on top of the boss and stand inside of it, and then throw up your Flame Wall as well on top of yourself, and then just cast Sparks as much as possible while keeping your Flame Wall up. This will pretty much melt the shit out of the Act bosses. But yeah, other than that, it's just the Agony Crawler for the extra damage that it provides us with the extra chance to poison as well, and then a faster casting with Stormbrand. This is for later on for when you switch, and then I used a Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder just to make things a little bit easier on the extra damage. And then for your auras as well, you should be using a Clarity. This is so that you can not rely on a mana flask pretty much. And then I was using Steel Skin on left click. But yeah, for the items, I just used 2 Axiom Perpetuums for the extra damage, a Gold Rim for resistances, the Tabula Rasa for the links, and a Asenath for the Temp Chains. Of course, you can use any gloves you really want. And then a Wanderlust so you cannot be frozen, and a Karuri Ward for the projectile speed and movement speed. And it also does give a decent amount of dexterity and strength, which the build really does need straight off the bat from Act 1. And then a Le Hoop of Ore for the all attributes, extra damage, and elemental resistances, along with a Praxis to reduce the total cost of our Spark, along with some extra mana regen. And then the Belt of Deceiver here for the elemental resistances, and nearby enemies are intimidated. Once you are in the middle of Act 4 or even the beginning of Act 4, your skill tree should look like this around about. This is when you want to switch to using Herald of Agony instead, and use Herald of Agony with damage on full life, summon Phantasm. The reason why Phantasm is because it does add in as meat shields, I guess you can say, along with some extra damage, and then Pierce, Vicious Projectiles, and Void Manipulation. And then to use Leap Slam and faster attacks instead of Flame Dash. This is so you can just Leap Slam through the areas really quickly, along with a Carrion Golem that has got Culling Strike, Minion Speed, and Maim. This just allows our Agony Crawler to deal extra damage against single targets, and then switch to using a Molten Shell. Then I also used a Herald of Purity with Feeding Frenzy. This was more so for meat shielding once again, but also just for an extra way to proc Feeding Frenzy. And then in order to keep your poisons up and to have your virulences pretty much maxed out as much as possible, you'll want to use Ball Lightning with faster casting, chance to poison, and Stormbrand. This is basically the setup that you'll be using all the way through until almost mapping. And then for the items that I was using was a Bright Beak. The reason why I used the Bright Beak is for the resistances, and because it's got really fast attack speed, so you can leap slam through areas really quickly. And then a Centauri's Answer for the chance to block spell damage, and for cursing enemies with punishment, Temp Chains, and Ellie weakness when you block. For your body armor, you should start using a Skin of the Lords now for the 2 level of socketed gems, which is really powerful. This will pretty much boost you through the acts without stress. And then, of course, I was using a Flesh and Spirit for Rampage for, once again, even more speed, just to get through the acts a lot quicker. And then still Wanderlust with the Karuri Ward. And then I switched to using 2 Hoops of Ore, mainly for the extra elemental resistances and the all attributes. Alright, so for the third path of building over here that I've got is just before you kill Katava in Act 10. This is pretty much where you should be on the skill tree and have done your 3 labs and that as well. Over here, you are still going to be using your Herald of Agony with the Carrion Golem. However, now instead we use Desecrate with Flesh Offering for extra damage output. And I switched to using a Flame Dash instead, along with a Determination and the Clarity, as you manage to pick up all of the reservation efficiency nodes over here, which you should pretty much rush as soon as you can, so you can fit in Determination just to make your acts feel a lot smoother and a lot more simplistic, should I say. Other than that, for the items, once you are in Act 6 or even 7, you should use a Replica Advancing Fortress, as it gives chance to block attack damage and increase defenses from your shield. And then I just put on some random rare gloves. Other than that, I switched to using the Anvil at, I think it was around about level 46 or so, for once again for the extra block and the armor and that, and for some sustain. And then I also switched to using the Circle of Nostalgias at around about level 55 for the Chaos Resistance and the Mana Reservation Efficiency to once again fit in that Determination. So before you kill Katava in Act 10, this is the ideal setup that you should have. However, it is not a must-have. This is just pretty much an early guideline. So when you do get into mapping and that, you don't really have issues or anything like that. All 4 of these path of buildings that I've just been through, you will find them down below in the description, along with the build guide for the Guardian variant of the build. Should you not have tried that out or anything, or even seen it, I highly recommend that you go and check it out. It is really, really tanky, and it is super, super good. And other than that, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like down below. I will appreciate it. Also, if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to ring the bell as well to stay updated with my latest videos and my live streams that I do right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, Exile, and I'll see you in the next video or live stream.